It's 11:59 at Gun Owners Radio, and this is the Penn Patriot, music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I've got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, and another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind American lines, this is your song.
The Second Amendment is created specifically to defend our right against a tyrannical government that looks to strip away our freedom. That is the reason that I defend these bills. It is not because I like hunting. That is just an ancillary benefit. But these guns exist in our society for a specific reason. They've been legal since the founding of this nation for a very specific reason. And I look at the atrocities in the last century, and I don't think that that's a good time to start stripping these away. Thank you.
Okay, welcome to Gun Owners Radio. Thanks for joining us. We have a great show. We have a special guest, but first, Alicia, how are you?
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Introduce yourself real quick.
My name is Alicia Curtin. I am a firearms instructor, post instructor at BSIS.
And again, I'm Michael Schwartz. I'm the executive director for San Diego County Gun Owners. And Dakota.
Hi, I'm Dakota Adelphia. I'm a firearms instructor, the facilitator of the San Diego chapter of A Girl and a Gun, and I do some work on the side for some different companies like Filster Holsters. And yeah, happy to be here.
So you know why I started doing this little intro thing here before we introduce our special guest?
What?
I got a bunch of people, well, like three. It feels like a bunch. There are like three people that are just like, hey, you guys never introduce yourselves. You
Like,
you
who
don't.
are you guys?
Yeah, you don't. It never says who you guys are or anything. And I was like, yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
So
fair.
anyway, so we want to introduce ourselves. So we have a very special guest that we're going to talk to right here in the studio. He's in town to do some really cool classes. It is my pleasure to introduce Chuck Haggard from Agile Training and Consulting. Chuck, welcome.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, man. Where are you in town from?
Kansas.
Kansas. How do you like Kansas?
I like Kansas a lot. I've lived there for 39 years now.
Now, we just connected somebody with training in Kansas? Is that somebody different?
Oklahoma,
Oh, that was Oklahoma.
right?
Is
But
Kansas anything like Oklahoma, Chuck? Because
They're
clearly,
very close
apparently, I'm not a
together.
geography major.
Kansas is
City.
directly north of Oklahoma. Oklahoma City's a 4-hour drive for me. So
Yes.
I'm down there. They've got a big gun culture. Oklahoma City Gun Club hosts like the Guardian Conference, things like that. And I'm down there doing training or interacting with people pretty regularly. But yeah, if you look on the map, the square with the panhandle of Oklahoma, Kansas is the one directly above it.
Right above it. Gotcha.
Puzzle pieces directly above.
And the type of training you do, the type of training that I know you mostly for is particularly, I know you do firearms training, but also you're particularly well known for pepper spray, right?
Yes.
You're a pepper spray guy.
So I'm also dumb enough to have been a cop for the past 39 years. I moved to Topeka when I got on the job there. I've since retired from that. I did 28 there and retired. But in the late,
You were a cop for 28 years?
and I'm still a cop.
You're still a cop. Holy
Yeah.
cow.
Yeah, I did 28 in Topeka, retired because there comes a point in the retirement system where you're almost paying to come to work. I figured out one of my because I was a shift commander when I retired, one of my officers was a CPA by trade. I don't know why he wanted to be a cop, but he was. But I had him run my retirement numbers when I hit 50, and we figured out that as a lieutenant, I was working 50-hour weeks, so I'm working 200 hours a month. And the difference between my retirement pay and my come to work pay was $1.97. So I was working 200 hours a month to earn basically $197 a month. So I could have left and been, I don't know, a door greeter at Walmart and been financially ahead. So I retired and then took a job as a firefighter at our airport. I was an air crash rescue specialist. And
How did you have the training to be a firefighter?
I didn't. They OJT'd us
What is OJT?
on the job.
On the job training. Gotcha. All right.
Everybody at that job, because it was an airport, was.
How did that happen? So you're just a cop, and then you're just like, hey, I don't want to, it doesn't make any sense with my retirement benefits. So you're just like you're like living every 5-year-old boy's dream. Like, is next going to be cowboy? Like.
I'd like to be an astronaut,
Yeah.
but I'm a little old for that.
So how did you? But what happened there that you went from cop to firefighter?
So the guy that was the chief there was a dude that I knew from back in my SWAT team days because he was a bomb tech for the state. And then he also had a firefighter background. Now he's chief. But the hook was everybody at the airport was police, fire, air crash rescue. So you had to do all the things. And he knew my training background. I have a very strong academy trainer, firearms, anything you would think of as reasonable use of force. Pepper spray, tasers, batons, handcuffs, ground control, jiu-jitsu, etc. Verbal judo, literally. I'm certified in all that. And he's like, hey, can you come work for me? I have a lot of dudes that are good firefighters. I need somebody to teach them how to be a cop. So I had to learn how to be a firefighter. And I did that for 7 years.
So
When your rights are on the line and the fight gets real, you need a lawyer who knows the deal. From gun laws to courtrooms, he'll stand by you. John Dillon fights for the red, white, and blue. John Dillon defending your rights, keeping bare arms with truth and might. From GVROs to self-defense calls, Dillon Law Group, he fights for us all. When freedom's under fire, who you gonna call? Dillon Law Group, justice for all. DillonLawGP.com.
how did you come to embrace pepper spray? Like, how did that become a main part of your teaching? How did you become an expert on that? Like, what was the catalyst there?
So it was about 1989, and it's been a while. So, 88, 89, 90, somewhere in there. What cops had was basically you had a big stick, you had fists. Some places had saps and blackjacks. And the idea was this is putting on my community policing hat as far as like community outreach. The word de-escalation in a lot of areas right now, the way it's used, the way it's misused, gives a sour taste to people's mouths. Like everybody thinks de-escalation is endlessly talk nice, give people a hug and a bunny.
Oh, that does sound nice. I mean,
But that's not true. De-escalation is not. I often tell people a correct, competent use of force early at a low level will often save you from having to use more force later to dig your way out of a hole.
so what's an example? Like, what's an example of de-escalation that people would not normally think of? Like, give me like a real world example.
So, because you guys can pull up videos and things like that, and people can look it up. When I was teaching recruit officers, I would pull up the video of Deputy Kyle Dinkheller, Dinkhleer. And if you've seen the video, it's a car camera video of the deputy makes a car stop. It's a white pickup truck. The gentleman comes out. He asks the guy to take his hands out of his pockets. The guy's F you, blah, 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 blah. And it turns into a physical confrontation. Eventually, the guy goes back to the truck, gets a M1 carbine out of the truck, loads it, turns into a running gun battle, and the deputy ends up dead.
Jeez.
So, and dies. It's horrible. You can hear the deputy screaming as he's being shot. He was shot like 13 times. You can pull it up on YouTube, Wikipedia, whatever. So that's an example.
Wait. Where does the de-escalation? Where did the de-escalation come in?
I'm getting to
You're getting
that.
there. Okay,
So,
gotcha. All right.
At one point, the guy physically confronts the deputy, and the deputy doesn't do anything effectively. So in that video, when I see cops watching it, the first time when it first came out, you see the guy go back to the truck. He's digging the gun out from behind the seat. He's loading the magazine, and everybody's asked, well, why isn't he shooting the guy? Why didn't he shoot? He's got a rifle. He's loading the rifle. He's standing there. Why aren't you shooting the guy? Why aren't you shooting the guy? And I was like, that's the wrong question. Why didn't he apply physical force effectively early He could have legally, morally, ethically, tasers didn't exist then, could have tasered him, could have pepper sprayed him. The deputy was a big kid. I think, if memory serves, like 6'5", 6'6", 275. So let's say he didn't have any training, but he's a big guy with a mindset. Could he have punched a dude in the face, wrap him up in a bear hug, drop him in the ditch, and sit on him till help arrives? All the above. So at several points in that encounter, he had the opportunity to competently use effective force early at a low level and not allow it to degenerate into a gunfight.
Gotcha.
So more recent example would be, remember when we had all the riots and stuff 3-4 years ago? Remember Atlanta, where they had the incident of the drunk driver at the Wendy's?
They
do the DUI stop. The two officers kind of mamby-pamby. They're trying to get him into cuffs. It turns into a fist fight. Drunk guys don't want to go to jail, weirdly enough. So it turns into a fist fight, and the officer utilizes the taser ineffectively. When you do that ineffectively, it causes pain to the person without incapacitation. That causes adrenaline stress to rise. When you get adrenaline, you get enkephalins and endorphins, which are natural painkillers that your body makes. So they're escalating the suspect's fight or flight response by an incompetent use of force. By the time the whole thing's over with, we have one cop with a concussion, we have one cop disarmed of his taser, and we have a fatal shooting that never should have happened. So at the correct time, assuming legal, moral, ethical, at the correct time, a competent use of force is de-escalation. How do we apply that to the non-cop world? We look at the sad case of George Zimmerman. At some point before it turned into a ground fight and then eventually a fatal shooting, and we know George Zimmerman, he prevailed at trial, but at what cost?
Everything. He lost everything.
The dirty little secret
his life.
In the prosecutor world is, even if they think they can't win the case, they will often push the case forward because the expression is the process is the punishment.
Oh, wow.
So they could have won the case and he went to prison, but even if they don't win the case and send him to prison, now he's $500,000 into legal fees, lost his house, lost his job, ruined his life. So the process is the punishment. What should we endeavor to do? Don't go through the process. So at some point in that encounter, let's say George Zimmerman had some street tactic skills, things what I call muck. I get the term from a friend of mine, Craig Douglas, managing unknown contacts. He had tried to verbally de-escalate, pulled OC, sprayed Trayvon Martin, backed off, called 911. If that had played out, what are the odds that we would have ever heard of George Zimmerman or Trayvon Martin?
Wouldn't even have hit the news. And
If you heard something on the news, confrontation happened on the street, dude pepper sprayed another dude, you'd be like, who cares, right? That sound okay. So that would be a case where the correct use of force at the correct time is a de-escalation. In the law enforcement world, what we were trying to do was pepper spray basically is a weaponized food condiment. It very effectively works on people, depending on what status of training, what product is chosen, about 80 to 90% of the time. So, the Anchorman expression, 60% of the time it works every time. Yeah. Well, if 9 out of 10 times it works every time and you don't have to go to a higher level of force. What my agency found, because I was one of the first 10 officers to get it, and we had this test program, we put it on the street, and then we had to do this report on to gauge the effectiveness. And we found out really quickly, hey, we're not having to go hands-on and fight people. I know we're on the radio, but if you see me walking around, this arm doesn't go straight anymore. Elbow's all busted up. That's what happens when you tackle people and do jujitsu in the real world. You don't have a mat.
You can't bring a mat around with you.
Yeah,
Can you imagine that? Just
weirdly enough. Think what a lot of people are into jujitsu, but how into jujitsu would they be if they had to do it on the concrete every time they did it?
Yeah. Since 2019, more than 1,400 women have applied to be a part of Not Me CA. What began as a small program has grown into a movement that is empowering women across our community. Since 2021, we've hosted educational shooting socials every month, where about a dozen women at a time come together to learn and to build confidence. We've also granted over a dozen firearms to women who could not afford one, ensuring that cost is never a barrier to safety. Our work has been recognized at the highest level in San Diego County, and in 2023, the County Board of Supervisors honored Not Me SD with a proclamation, and in 2024, the City of Escondido did the same. But the real reward comes from the lives that we've impacted. We offer a series of classes from Stop the Bleed to pepper spray and situational awareness and women's self-defense, alongside with firearms training and CCW support. Survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault know they have a safe place to turn, and every participant is paired with a mentor to guide them and support them every step of the way. At Not Me CA, our mission is clear: to give women the courage, knowledge, and power. Created by women for women, we are here to ensure that every woman has the tools, training, and confidence that she needs to protect herself and to live without fear. But we cannot do this work alone. We need your help. Your donations directly provide training, mentorship, and even firearms to women who otherwise would have no way to protect themselves. Every dollar you give equips another woman with safety and with hope. Please join us. Invest into courage, invest into empowerment, and invest into women's safety. Together, we can change lives.
Doesn't sound fun.
So in my experience, people all the time, why'd the cop do that? Why didn't they just, grab them, whatever? In a physical confrontation on the street, everybody gets hurt. I've been covered. I've had people get scraped up because I had to fight them on the concrete. Now they're bleeding on me, and I find out they're Hep B positive.
Jeez.
So now I've been exposed to hepatitis, go to the hospital, prophylaxis medicines. I'm waiting the next 6 months to see if my blood work is going to come out negative. Yeah, there's no upside to that. So what we found was pepper spray a dude, and it does what one of my mentors calls takes the fight out of the fighter. Now we muscle him into cuffs. He goes to jail. He gets washed off. We go do reports. We found it dropped suspects going to the emergency room 80-90%.
Wow.
Officers having to file work comp claims for work injuries also dropped at about that rate. So it's physically easier on the suspect. The medical implications of a use of force are part of the quote level of force. Why are guns deadly force? Because when you shoot holes in people, it's likely to cause death and or great bodily harm. And even the people that don't know anything about guns, we've all seen the situations of, well, why didn't they just shoot him in the leg? Because one of two outcomes happens. It either doesn't work at all because it's literally but a flesh wound, poke a hole in a muscle and nobody cares, or you hit the femoral artery, or you hit the femur, you break the femur, it bleeds a lot and it's jagged and cuts things up. You may have crippled somebody for life. They may bleed to death in the next 30 seconds. You can't just shoot somebody in the leg. It's still deadly force, right? So that's the medical implications of the use of force. What's the medical implications of application of OC?
Almost nothing.
You make them feel bad.
Yeah.
It causes a sensation of
You make
heat.
them feel like they want to die.
It causes, I joke commonly, it causes pain. It causes a sensation of pain. It causes a sensation of heat. It activates those nerves, but doesn't actually cause burning or tissue damage or injury. So it literally hurts your feelings is what it comes down to. That's medically a very low level of force. It's demonstrably non-lethal, not lawyer language in the police world, like impact munitions from shotguns. Remember when beanbags first came out?
Yeah.
They were calling them non-lethal. And then every once in a while you hit somebody, like they try to duck, you hit them in the throat, the guy dies. Well, the company started calling that less lethal. We didn't say it was non-lethal, it's less lethal. So
Less lethal, which is kind of a funny.
less lethal than what?
Well, less lethal. it's like someone is kind of pregnant. Like it's either, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, arguably,
it's either lethal or it's not lethal. I get what they're trying to say.
arguably, a beanbag is less lethal than just using buckshot, which is correct.
Yes.
But we didn't tell you it was non-lethal. Well, OC spray is demonstrably non-lethal. It's not only not likely to cause death or great bodily harm, it's not likely to cause any injury whatsoever. The Canadian cops are a lot better at putting science to this, and I've seen a study from the Calgary Police Service that showed the absolute safest thing that a police officer could do as a use of force against a resisting suspect was pepper spray. Shockingly enough, doesn't shock me any or any jujitsu people. The next safest thing you could do is neck restraints, like a lateral vascular neck restraint, or in what in jujitsu is called a rear naked choke, but it's neither naked nor a choke. So I don't know where the term came from, but at any rate, that's the next safest thing you could do. When you actually put science to this and you look at the stats and the numbers, you get reality. So in my time on the street, conservative estimate, because we had a lot of crime.
What is, just before you go over, what is a rear naked choke? Is you just have your arm around the guy's neck?
Yeah, so you're putting compression on the sides. If you look in jiu-jitsu, it's called a rear naked choke. In wrestling, they call it a sleeper hold. Formalized version of that from Kansas City, an organization that I teach for, National Law Enforcement Training Center, has a formalized version of that, lateral vascular neck restraint. What you do is avoid the windpipe. You don't put any pressure on a windpipe. You put pressure on the side of the neck.
So the lifeblood of every organization is membership. We absolutely need membership. And then you as a Second Amendment activist want to be involved, want to help make things better. And we have a way for you to be involved, get involved, and stay involved. Look at our volunteer page. If you go to sdcgo.org/volunteer, we keep it up to date, and there's always an opportunity for you to get more involved. Our bread and butter are our shooting socials, where we teach people how to shoot. They've never had a shooting experience. Maybe they're brand new to shooting and they want to have a first-time shooting experience. You can help us do that. Or if you want to help spread the word, we have tabletops at different gun shops, at different events, and you can volunteer to tell people more about the Second Amendment, more about how to get a CCW, or more about being a member of an organization like SDCGO. The good news is it's super easy. We'll help train you. We'll help you get involved. We'll give you the opportunity to do good things.
If you don't have the time to volunteer, there's another way that you can help too. We are always looking for folks to donate. And if you want to pledge $5,000 in this next year, we will have you on our show as a guest host. So come join us in the studio. We would love to have you here for one episode, and that is for a price of $5,000.
$5,000 donation to San Diego County Gun Owners gets you a guest host with me and Dakota and Alicia, and you can talk about whatever you want to talk about, and you get to do whatever you want to right here on Gun Owners Radio. So thank you so much. Whatever you do, just do a little bit more than you did last year and help us defend and preserve the Second Amendment right here in your backyard.
It's a myth that you cut off the carotids. That's impossible. It's physically impossible to overcome. It's like if you step on your garden hose, does it turn off your garden hose? No, it just slows it down a little bit. But it also basically massages the vagal nerves, which lowers blood pressure, which causes people to faint. If you ever seen, how many of us have watched MMA, UFC, things like that? Sure. How many times has a quote unquote choke ended that match? Like one dude gets the other guy, gets his hooks in and gets an arm around the neck, and you see the guy take a nap. We've all seen that.
Yeah, not uncommon.
It's actually super common in that venue, correct?
Yes.
How many of those guys die?
None.
None
Or
of
almost
them
none.
that I know of.
Yeah. Because, and even with nobody coaching you to, hey, you're going to have to use reasonable force and put the guy into custody and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
These dudes are just fighting, right? It's straight up fight, no holds barred, is what it is. What's the safety factor in that venue?
What's the safety factor? Meaning,
how many people are dying
Oh.
in the middle of these tournaments?
like none of them.
Like none. So that's an example of what I'm talking about. When
Yeah.
you look at the reality of reasonable use of force, things that are effective and safe, that would be an example. But
So maybe it's not the neck restraint that in and of itself is the bad thing, but there was this public perception because people are on drugs or whatever else is happening, and for some reason they do die in police custody. You're saying it's arguably not because of the neck restraint.
correlation does
It's
not equal causation.
because of overdose or heart attack or some other thing happening.
Yeah, in SoCal in the 80s, it was like LAPD famously lost neck restraints in the 80s because they would look at, they had to fight, this guy was buck naked, sweating, howling like a werewolf, jumping through plate glass windows. The cops show up, they're fighting the guy. It's on like Donkey Kong. Eventually, they put a neck restraint on him. They get him into custody, and then at some point, he passes away. And oh my God, what's the last thing the cops did? Well, they did the neck restraint. Oh, we got to stop doing that because it's killing people. What we know now is the phenomenon of excited delirium was what was killing people. What hit California in the 80s? Crack cocaine. Crack cocaine causes a form of excited delirium known as cocaine-induced psychosis. It's incredibly common. One of the things involved in cocaine-induced psychosis is hypothermia. So
Really? What? I wonder why that is. Can you talk more about that? That's kind of interesting.
So if I didn't pronounce it, hyperthermia. I want to emphasize that part. So tell me what the cops did to the guy when you find out that he had a body temperature of 112 degrees.
Man, jeez.
That's clearly something in his system.
Yeah.
What happens in an excited delirium is their metabolism gets away from them. It's fight or flight response. Maxed out, turbo. They're running around, figuratively speaking, 100 miles an hour with their hair on fire. I've seen cases in the literature, some of the medical nerd literature, where they've had people post-mortem, so they're dead and they're in a morgue and they're getting the liver temperature and they're still like 108. Well, what were they before they died?
108. Seriously, 108? So when you said 112, you weren't exaggerating?
Not in the least.
Oh my gosh. Like
We had one.
fry your brain.
We had one, thankfully, for my old department. Yeah, exactly. How many of us have kids in the room?
I have none
So
that I know of. None that I know of.
How old are your kids?
18 up to 28.
So remember when they were babies?
Yeah.
Let's say they were 4 years old. If one of them woke up crying in the middle of the night, you took the temp and they were 103. What are you doing?
Emergency.
It's
As a first-time mom, probably the
emergency room,
yeah.
right?
But then you
Because
get to kid 3 and 4.
I'm aware. I've got
Yeah.
2 daughters myself, but we know 104, 105. You're starting to get into brain damage territory. So one of my friends is a paramedic in where I used to work, and thankfully nobody in my old job was involved. But they had a call of guy running around naked, howling at the moon, doing all the stuff that people do when they're in this state. Well, by the time the police got there and the paramedics got there, the guy had already like passed out. He had maxed out his metabolism and had basically passed out. And you know, they're so popular now, the little temp guns that, remember during COVID, we kept getting shot in the forehead with the little
Before you
temperature
could
gun, right?
Go into a restaurant, before you go into a Denny's. Ridiculous.
So she tried to get a quick temp because nobody wants to touch the sweaty naked guy, right? She got a quick temp on him and the gun said hi. It didn't give the number. It said hi. So she's like, wow, our temperature gun has got something's wrong with it.
Maxed out the gun. Jeez.
She checked with the manufacturer and said, oh yeah, that's the reading it gives when it's above 114.
Oh my gosh. You know, I had, back when I was 14 years old, I had pneumonia really bad. And really bad. Like I had to go to the hospital. I was out of school for like a month. And I remember I had a fever in the 100, before I was diagnosed, I had a fever in the 100 and like low one, like 103.1 or something like that, but low 103s. And I remember being disoriented. Like it was, you know, almost confusion. I mean, 108, 110, 114 is crazy. And a little,
It's irrecoverable.
and very, it's not hyperbole to say that's fatal. That's like you could
Yes.
die. You could have permanent brain damage.
Yes,
That's insane.
absolutely.
I had no idea. I knew that it caused your body temp to rise. I had no idea it was that extreme. That's crazy.
One of the first significant cases I ran into on the street, I showed up on a call, and it was on one of our local campus. And when I pulled up, I was greeted with a guy standing on top of buck naked on top of the campus security car, jumping up and down on the car. Our police helicopter was overhead with the night sun, the big spotlight lighting up the scene, and this guy's jumping up and down. And at first I thought, he's jumping up and down on the roof of the car trying to cave in the roof of the security car. And then I realized he's jumping trying to get air, like he's reaching up. And I realized he's trying to grab the helicopter.
We've all been there, Chuck.
The helicopter's at 800 feet. They're in a very low orbit. But why is he trying to grab the helicopter?
And why are all these guys? Why does crack make you want to get naked? Why are all these people naked?
Because they get hot.
It's the
Alicia, you got any insight on that?
It's the hyperthermia.
There you go. They're so hot.
They're
like,
so hot they start shedding clothes
Yeah.
in an unconscious attempt to save themselves. But this guy, how out of touch with reality. We've all heard stories like in the 60s, PCP, some dude thought they could fly, they jump off a roof. So they think they can fly, so they try to do it, and we know it doesn't work. This guy was jumping in the air trying to grab a helicopter.
Yeah. Jeez.
Why? Because he thinks he can.
Yeah.
But one of the things that was immediately apparent to me was he's buck naked and sweat was rolling off this dude. And I mean, like he's jumping rope in the sauna. It's pouring off of him. He's buck naked. It's 10 below zero.
Wow.
He has enough body temperature. He's sweating 10 below zero. I believe that the ambient temperature saved his life. His body temperature couldn't
him
get
cool,
past the cook your brain. We got him into custody, stuffed him in the ambulance. He went to the emergency room, then up to the psych ward. But I think the flip side of that is, or the like where we didn't get the straw that broke the camel's back in that case was it was too cold for it to end up fatal for him, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas in a lot of the, like, you guys don't have 10 below zero here.
No.
So how many of these guys was LA fighting and it's, 80, 90, 100 degrees, that sort of thing. So it makes a difference.
So there were a lot of in custody deaths, basically, and your point earlier, kind of to go back to the de-escalation thing, was that some of the de-escalation tactics that were available had been taken away from departments due to policy changes.
Yes.
This conversation kind of started asking you about how did you get into OC, and we talked about, it was a very effective way to stop people without injuring them, and it was successful in also reducing law enforcement injuries.
Yes.
But then kind of go back and talk a little bit more about like the rest of your career. So you talked about how you got into law enforcement a little bit, OC, and then what are you doing now?
So I ended up in the civilian training world accidentally. The vast majority of what I've been doing was police and military because that's just what I did. And a lot of it was in agency. We had a regional academy. Our department was large enough to have an academy that was regionally accredited for our state as an alternative to the state academy. And I was teaching in that venue, was a train the trainer level of instructor for National Law Enforcement Training Center out of Kansas City. They're partnered with Kansas City Police Department. So all I did was classes at the train the trainer level so that instructors could go back to their departments, teach their own people. So I was teaching pepper spray batons, handcuffing, ground control. What you think of as like, some kind of grappling jiu-jitsu stuff, firearms. I was a SWAT guy for 18 years on a very busy SWAT team. I did verbal judo, verbal de-escalation. And then towards the end of my career, Tom Givens asked me to be an instructor for his Rangemaster Tactical Conference. The first time I taught was in Memphis when he still had that facility. And that's the vast majority of the people attending that conference are CCW people. What Pat Rogers was one of my mentors. He called average Earth people. Not military special operations or whatever. Yeah. And I started really enjoying that training and doing that. And that branched into other conferences. Like Dakota knows I teach at the annual A Girl and a Gun conference, which I really, really enjoy.
What do you like? So, what do you like about? Is it that they're civilians? That part you like, or you like the curriculum, or both?
The enthusiasm and the mindset and things like that. So, when I go to the Girl and a Gun conference, everybody's jazzed up to be there, and they're excited, and they want to train, and they if you do a good job, they're like, thanks a lot, and I love this, and I want to get more. There's nothing more soul-sucking than to have to teach an in-service class and deal with, let's say, day shift detectives who want to bitch about getting paid to shoot free ammo on a warm spring day. It's if I never have to teach another police in-service class the rest of my life, I'll be very, very happy. The difference in having to figuratively twist arms to get people to train to a high level just gets old.
Does it get old? Okay, so what class are you here to teach in San Diego? What class specifically are you teaching?
I am doing
classes.
I'm doing a low light class, so
Nice.
integrating white light and handguns this evening. Tomorrow I'm doing a class that Dakota asked me to do, which is I call street encounter skills, and some of this will be proxemics, managing the unknown contact, recognizing pre-assault indicators, some use of less than lethal force. So we're gonna talk about pepper spray deployment and where that would come into the equation, and then also some handgun skills that would be pertinent to CCW people.
Gotcha.
And then the second day, Sunday, will be my close quarter handgun class, which covers 7 yards and in. And most people shoot, when they go to the range, they shoot from full extension, position 4, what you would think of as either Weaver or isosceles, what you typically see in matches and on the range. A lot of the encounters we have are at ranges where somebody can put a hand on your gun. And we don't often train for that contact and near contact distance. So that class covers that. It also covers Rule 4, know your target, what's in between you and the target, what's beyond it. Now, at the range, what do we got to have? Okay, my target's lined up with the backstop. Nobody's downrange or pairing a target. I'm good to go. I shoot. If you're on the Walmart parking lot,
Whole new world, whole different world.
Exactly. How many? It's different than an IDPA match. If you go to an IDPA match, you might have like 3 no shoots and 15 shoots as part of that match course. How many no shoots do you have on the Walmart parking lot?
Everything but like one.
Yes. So what I talk about is another one of my friends, Claude Warner, the tactical professor, who, if you don't follow him, you should, talks about it's one of the few true researchers in this business. He looked at a ton of in the American Rifleman magazine where they do the grandma shoots a burglar stories and all that. They have them every month. He took a whole ton of those and he put numbers to them, and he found it's often between 40 and 50% of these involve what he calls a downrange problem. An example would be somebody knocks at the door, husband goes to the door, the dude's got a knife, there's a fight in the door, the wife has to grab the handgun to save her husband. That's a shockingly common type event. So what does she have to deal with? She has to shoot past her husband or the bad guys in front of or just behind the person, your loved one that you don't want to hit. So the Sunday class will talk about how do you not only hit what you're supposed to hit and don't endanger bystanders and things like that.
Nice.
So
that's awesome.
That's a class that I've done for a number of years. It's been pretty popular.
I really do think that sounds great. That curriculum sounds extremely real world and useful, which I think we need more of. Now, Dakota, you're responsible for getting them here, right? You invited them. What was the thought process? What was the catalyst? How come you wanted Chuck to come in and teach that curriculum?
Yeah, I've trained with Chuck a couple of times. So he mentioned a Girl and a Gun National Conference, but there's also TACCon, which is the Range Master National Conference they have out in Dallas. And then he's been out to San Diego and up to LA before. And so I've taken classes from him pretty much anytime he's on this West Coast southern side of the country. And yeah, there's a lot of what I consider more like tactical cool guy training out there, where you just show up and you try to look cool and you take videos for your Instagram. And that's not necessarily what I want, my girls in the San Diego chapter and what I want this community to have. I want them to have real world skills that maybe aren't as fun or as cool looking to train, but are way more likely, way more common. There's definitely a place for like competitive shooting training, and I'm not against that at all. I bring out competitive instructors as well. But when we're thinking about actual concealed carry skills and what are the things that I could get myself into and have to have the skills for, I don't want that to be the first time one of my girls is ever shooting from a position of retention, is when somebody is trying to get her gun out of her hand. That is not setting her up for success in that encounter. And so I think for me, I always look at trainers and curriculums through the lens of, what are the students taking away from this, and can it help them prevail on the worst day of their life? And I think Chuck's one of the guys in this industry who's doing it really, really well and has a fantastic concealed carry curriculum that focuses on some of that de-escalation stuff that so many instructors don't want to talk about at all. I can't tell you how many classes, concealed carry type classes I've taken, where the entire curriculum is focused on shooting.
Yeah.
Well,
a lot.
Why would I want to shoot somebody if I've got 7 other options between the encounter starting and the shooting? Why am I going to put myself through the legal issues and all the other, mental, emotional, all that stuff when I had other choices that these instructors just don't want to bring up? So the pepper spray piece of his curriculum is so great. I know, and I'm sure you see this in the cop world too. I know so many cops and instructors who are anti pepper spray, or who say things like, oh, I've seen pepper spray not work. And so there's a lot of myths to beat in that as well. And a lot of, people saying, oh, the wind's going to blow back, it's going to get you, and then you're going to be, worse of a victim. You're going to be worse off after the blowback.
Grossly overstated.
It's insane how many myths there are around pepper spray. And so people often, even like for my local CCW classes, they come in and I mention pepper spray and they're like, oh, my husband said that's a bad idea. Or my cop friend told me that, everyone gets sprayed in a pepper spray fight and that's no fun and whatever. And so I loved that Chuck was like, not only do I have the experience as a cop, not only do I have the real world experience of spraying hundreds, thousands, however.
I conservatively estimate, I don't think I completed that thought, but somewhere between 300 and 400 bad guys in real world street encounters over, is we got it very early in my career, and we were told what they wanted to do was lower the level of force. So don't jump on them. Now you're in a grapple fight, everybody's hurt, and then use it. We were taught if you have probable cause to believe they have physically resisted or would physically resist, like you tell them, hey, turn around, you got to put your hands behind your back. Well, you got warrant for your arrest. We're going to have to go downtown. And they're like, F you, ball up their fist, and they're going to fight. Spray them first. Take the fight out of the fighter. I've done that somewhere between 300 and 400 times, and it works pretty good.
Yeah.
And then I can avoid getting Hep B on me and all the other drama. Why would I ask regular Earth people all the time, would you see like the hobo living under the bridge? Do you want to go give that guy a hug? Do you want to have physical contact with that guy? No,
Rarely.
I would. Oh, that's gross.
Rarely do I have that thought, Chuck.
So if you have
not at my age,
if you have a tool that you can utilize physical force, non-lethal at a distance, and avoid physical contact, and not have to go to lethal force because you interdicted the fight before it could get escalate, why would you not?
Yeah.
So when you're using it on your firearms, because it takes about 3 cleanings, so I like to say it's a clean shoot, clean shoot, clean shoot process, much like seasoning a cast iron skillet. So you're going to field strip your firearm, break it down, and then you're going to put our product on piece by piece by piece, covering the entire firearm. Then you're going to take the barrel, you're going to clean the barrel inside of that, and then you come back and you wipe it all off, and you're done. It's that easy. Remember, seal one and done.
Okay, so there's a couple of things I want to talk to you about. I want to talk more specifics on pepper spray. I want to talk about some low light
Same thing.
myths as well. But let's move into Stump My Nephew, because he's on the line here. So you're gonna come up with a question, Chuck. So come up with a question, and but let me do the intro first here, okay? Okay, so Stump My Nephew. We found out years ago that my nephew Sam is extremely good when it comes to gun trivia. So please send us in a question, gun trivia, gun history, something having to do with guns. He does not get to hear the question prior, so he doesn't get to prepare. If we use your question on the air, you'll get a hat or a shirt. If you stump my nephew, then you'll get a special prize. But good luck doing that. So, Sam, are you there, bud?
Hi.
How you doing, man?
I'm well. How are you guys?
Fantastic. So we've been mixing it up a little bit in the last month. We had some advice, some folks wanted some advice from you, Sam, and now we actually have an in the studio guest here. Chuck is gonna shoot from the hip and send you a trivia question. Do you know Chuck? Have you ever met Chuck, Sam? You ever follow him at all, or see his curriculum, or heard of him or anything?
I don't believe I've met him. No.
Well, there you go. Sam, meet Chuck. Chuck, my nephew Sam.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Chuck.
Apparently, we've stumped him already because
Yeah, that's the question. Hey, thanks for coming on, Sam. See you next week. All right, well, let's go. You got a question, Chuck?
So, because I already know the answer, and it's one of the tropes in the gun world that something like you got to have a 45, otherwise you're going to be killed in the streets. So, Sam, do you know what the most commonly issued combat pistol caliber was during World War One?
Oh, that's a good one.
Ooh.
Should we take bet before he answers? Do you guys think he's going to know that? What do you think?
I'm going to say yes. I think
You think he's going to know it?
Yes.
What do you think, Alicia?
I agree. I think he does.
You're like his biggest fan, though, Alicia. I swear. You're like a
I want to
Sam
adopt him.
fanboy. I know you
know.
do. You're like a Sam. I don't think he's going to get it. I think
I
you're going
like
to stop
this
it. I got to
split.
go. All right.
This is a good split.
All right. There you go, Sam. So Chuck from San Diego asks,
No, Chuck from Kansas
or from Kansas asks, go for it. What do you got?
Well, thank you very much for writing in, Chuck from Kansas. What was the most commonly issued combat handgun caliber in World War One? And you mean just caliber overall, not specific chambering, right?
Well, you could go for a specific, when I say caliber, I mean like round, like 45 ACP as an example.
Most commonly issued. So in World War One, I do know, first of all, that the situation with military handguns was a little bit different from how it is now. Militaries did have formally adopted handguns that they issued to officers and some other troops, depending on their role. But there was also a very widespread phenomenon, which dates back a long time before that, but this was still the case to some extent in World War One, of officers buying and bringing their own handguns with them. So you would have, like, for example, Winston Churchill famously used a broom handle Mauser, a C96. He was not issued that. That was his. He brought it with him, and it ended up saving his life. Now, as for the most commonly used caliber, if you want a specific round, I would guess it's probably going to be 32 ACP, because I know all the European powers had this weird kind of mix of different stuff, and many of them had multiple different commonly used handgun rounds. Like you could have someone from the Austro-Hungarian Empire have a C96 that he had bought on his own dime in 7.63, and then a guy next to him with something in 9mm Mauser export, and then the next guy over would have some American pistol like a Browning 1903 that his family had bought in 380 or something. But I know 32 ACP was very common on the European continent, so that's going to be my guess.
That's his guess. Chuck, how do you do?
That is correct.
Wow.
Phenomenal.
Right, we were right. Alicia and I believed in you, Sam.
Yeah, I didn't. I was ready to sell them right down the river. Hey, so 32 caliber, you know,
I did not expect that, to be honest.
really?
Yeah, I didn't.
That's not what I would have.
I wouldn't have gone
if
there.
I just
Yeah.
pulled
Well,
something out of my ass.
what's interesting, and give me a little bit of history, Sam. You know, coming out of Europe, we would expect it to be, you know, something millimeter, but 32 caliber, I think of that measurement as being very American. Was there a time when Europe used that and then switched over, or give me a little bit of
Yes.
history there?
And it was more recent than you might think, and I'll get back around to that. 32 ACP is designated 7.65 by 17 SR in metric. It was prevalent really for mainly for engineering reasons, I would argue, because it's a small enough and low enough powered round that using the relatively primitive metallurgy and technology they had around the turn of the last century, it was comparatively easy to design a small, concealable, straight blowback pistol for 32 ACP. A little harder to design something around, say, 9x19, 9mm Luger, 9 Parabellum, whatever you want to call it, because it's a substantially more powerful round, and you really basically need a locked breech for it. It's not strictly necessary, but I won't get into that. 32 ACP is easy to design a gun around because it's so low powered, and you have a wide potential user base because you can make the handgun small and pocketable. It was common in Europe up through at least the 1950s. And one sort of fun fact connected to that is that nowadays you go to the theater, you watch a James Bond movie, or you go on Netflix and watch a James Bond movie, and he has a Walther PPK in 32 ACP.
That's right.
Because that's the gun James Bond has. So that's what he has to have. Originally, the James Bond character in Ian Fleming's novels had some Beretta that was very quickly replaced with that PPK in 32, because the actual former secret agent, sneaky guy who Ian Fleming talked to for technical assistance said, oh yeah, a gentleman assassin in continental Europe would need something reliable and well made, so a Walther PPK at the time. And he would need it chambered for something that he can easily find ammunition for everywhere. Nowadays, that would be 9 Parabellum, but back in the day, that was 32 ACP.
32.
That was the most common round.
Interesting. What do you think, Chuck? Are you impressed yet?
Yeah. When I was a kid in Germany, I was actually born over there and lived there for some time. The local cops that would foot patrol the town that we lived in still carried the Walther PP, and that was in the 1970s. They were still carrying 32 pistols. It was very common. But one of the things I point out is a lot of people think, well, you got to have a 45 to have much stopping power, you know. In the days before hollow points worked, and things that, because I also teach things like tactical anatomy. Like I'm an instructor for Dr. James Williams' tactical anatomy instructor course. I help him teach that. I'm his AI. And I talk about wind ballistics, but we look at the attributes of what a dude in trench warfare would want. And a lot of the pistols that shot 32 back then were actually about the size of a Glock 48. So that's just, people gravitate to handguns that size. If you think of like the SIG 365s, the Glock 48, 43X, that size of handgun is just popular with people. So if you've ever shot a Glock 48 or a 9mm that size, you know they're really snappy. Now, take a gun that size, chamber it in 32 ACP, it doesn't recoil a whole lot more than a 22. So you got super easy recoil, accurate gun, you got 8, 9, 10 shots, you have a bullet that will penetrate all the way through a large man. If I'm in a trench fight in the middle of the night, and I got instead of a bolt action rifle that I can fire one round, I have to cycle it. It's 3-4 feet long. I can't maneuver it in the trench. I've got a handgun with 9, 10 shots that shoots an effective low recoil round. That's kind of a recipe for success.
Interesting.
So it was
And it's easier to train people to shoot that.
Yeah, it is easy. It is easy to train people to shoot low recoil handguns, but between the economics of it and the ability to mass produce it and the attributes as a defensive handgun, if you will, that's it just ended up at the top of the heap. The French army bought millions of 32 pistols.
Wow. Well, there you go, Sam. You got it. Chuck, we got to get you a hat or a shirt since we used your question, but you don't get the special prize. You did not stump my nephew, but awesome job, Sam, as always, man.
Well, as always, thanks for having me on. That was a fun one.
Good. All right, let's move on.
Those of you who know me know that I love training. You've heard me talk about different classes I've taken and different opportunities I've had to train with some of the best. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about Massad Ayoob. Those of you who have never had the opportunity to train with Massad, he is a legend in this industry. He was a former police officer. He has a ton of experience with deadly force, and he has a phenomenal instructor program called Deadly Force Instructor. I went all the way to Detroit back in 2022 to take this class from him, and you guys are super lucky. He is going to be coming to San Diego, so you don't have to travel far to get into this class. One of the things that I really appreciated about this class is the opportunity to do a mock trial. We got to actually play different roles in this trial, figure out who gets acquitted or not acquitted, and just deal with all of those repercussions as if they were real. So we had lawyers in class who were, actually debating their client's case. We had different witnesses go on the stand. I got to play the daughter of one of the characters on the stand, so that was a lot of fun. But it was just a great opportunity for us to experience how a good attorney can really make or break somebody's case. And we've seen this time and time again in the Deadly Force Instructor class. Sometimes you have an attorney who gets you off, and sometimes you have an attorney who doesn't. So it's a good opportunity for you to recognize how important the law process is and making sure that you have a good attorney. It's also a great way to make sure that you're teaching your students the best, most well-practiced pieces of the law. So for example, in class, Massad Ayoob will go over a ton of different cases and do some case studies on how these cases turned out so that you can go back to your students with some real life knowledge of how these things played out in court. One of the biggest takeaways for me in this class was the amount of knowledge Massad Ayoob had. And this guy knows so much about so many things. I took probably 8 pages of notes in this class, and I was able to come back to San Diego and I really revamped my entire CCW curriculum based on what I had learned. So not only is it real life data from actual shootings, actual defense situations, but it's also just a wide breadth of knowledge from an instructor who has literally decades of experience in this topic. I really enjoyed the class, and I think you would too. Go ahead and join us in San Diego if you are an instructor wanting to make sure that your students are getting the best information about deadly force and use of force. And if you're a defense attorney and you want to get a little bit of experience in a classroom with a bunch of folks who have the potential to use a firearm for protecting their own life in the future. So it's a great opportunity for you to learn about deadly force, being a better instructor, and being a better attorney.
Let's do a little round table. First is, before we get into, because I wanted to talk specifically about some of the curriculum and talk about some of the myths, but first I want to go around, what is your most controversial gun opinion? What is an opinion you have on guns or training or ammo or whatever that's most controversial? And Chuck, we're gonna wait. You're gonna go last. Okay. Dakota, what do you got?
Dang,
Right on
this
the.
is just for Chuck.
No,
I wasn't
right.
wrong.
You're on the.
Oh man.
Now it's Stump Dakota.
I have so many controversial opinions. Most controversial. I've probably said that on the show before. I'm not a fan of in general, I'll say I'm not really a huge fan of grip safeties on concealed carry guns. But there are concealed carry guns out there like the Easy, the Shield Easy and stuff that I just really don't like. And they're marketed towards women. They're, supposed to be really good, like women's option that I just cannot stand. So that surprises people when I say that. Usually,
Like
people are
gun
like,
people.
Yeah, usually people are like, really?
they like
That's
yeah
like-
they like those.
That's
Those are super
perfect
fun.
for arthritic grandmas. I'm like, well, not if she can't engage the grip safety. Like, it's not perfect because the gun doesn't work for her. So I don't know.
That's your most controversial.
That's one of them.
All right, Arlisha, what do you got?
I do not find it to be a cardinal sin to close an eye.
I agree.
Okay.
With that. Yeah, I agree with that.
You know, yeah. I mean,
That's
is
interesting.
two eyes better? Absolutely. But what I found is that people that struggle with both open tend to shut both. You give them a crutch of one,
That
it
feels
can
like
grow into two.
that feels like that's kind of I think that both eyes open thing is like I think that's only about 15 years old. Chuck, right? Chuck,
Yeah,
like
pretty
it
much.
wasn't like that in the 90s, and that's about a 10, 15-year-old deal. But you're right. People like, well,
Yeah.
you close an eye, the whole world's going to fall
Well,
apart.
with iron sights, right? We want to preface that both eyes open with optics makes sense, but there's lots of iron sight shooters that have a hard time
Yeah.
keeping both eyes open, and whatever.
All right.
I've had officers with red dots with optics that could not shoot them competently at all unless they couldn't get a good sight picture unless they closed that non-dominant eye.
Really
It was physically impossible.
interesting.
I have found
Convergence
that
problems or something.
they were fighting over eye dominance, things like that. And if you some people don't have a really dominant eye, so they're always going like 49, 51, 50, 50, and they're fighting, and their sight picture would. I had one of my SWAT guys. He would go to shoot, and if he didn't close an eye, his round could impact like 3 feet off the target.
Oh wow.
Because the other eye was picking up the.
Yeah, it was he was
Interesting.
kind of cross-eyeing, and he would think he was on target, and then it was sight picture, and there was times he didn't even hit paper. So what do we got to
Wow.
do? Do what you got to do to hit the target.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the priority for sure. So I think my most controversial, and we've talked about it a couple of times, my most controversial still is the people that, a semi-automatic AR is not a weapon of war. Yeah, it is. It's a weapon of war. They use semi-auto ARs in the military all the time. Of course, it's a weapon of war. If somebody invades the country and you're defending your country, you're going to grab your semi-auto AR to defend it. It is absolutely a weapon of war, which is why it is protected by the Second Amendment. That's what they're protecting, is weapons of war. Every time I say that, Chuck, I get lit up in the comments section, and people are like, oh, it's semi-automatic. It's not a weapon. Nobody would ever go to war with a semi-automatic. So that's probably my most controversial. I don't know. What do you think?
A huge advantage with us in World War II was that we had semi-auto rifles, and nobody else had a functional semi-auto rifle. We had M1 Garands, and everybody else was fighting with bolt actions. So it was a semi-auto rifle, a very effective weapon of war. But
it was in those 4 years.
Everybody tries to use the militaristic thing to make everything seem evil. I dealt with that in the police all the time. Well, that's the militarization of the police. And I'll ask them questions like, well, do you think we should go back to the days of cops wearing the traditional navy blue uniform and carrying a .38 revolver? And a lot of them are, well, yeah, it's like traditional. And then I'll ask them questions like, so we should go back to like carrying a Smith & Wesson Model 10. The military and police revolver. If I carry what's a classic cowboy gun? The Colt 45. The Colt 45 what? Single action army.
Yeah.
Where did the traditional navy blue uniform come from in police service?
I don't know. Where
The
did it come
Union, the Union Army.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know
At
that.
the end of the Civil War, they demobbed all these millions of dudes, whatever it was, a couple million guys, whatever the numbers were. They have all this stuff that the taxpayers have already paid for. How did LA end up with navy blue uniforms with the traditional, the brass buttons, all that? The Union Army gave it to them.
Interesting.
So this whole militarization thing, it's always cross-pollinated.
It is. I'll tell you, it is something. Before we get to your most controversial gun view, let's talk about that for a minute, because that is something I've talked about on the show. I've said that one of the major accomplishments that the United States does not get enough credit for is posse comitatus, where there's a huge separation between
Yes.
military and law enforcement, because the redcoats, when we were the 13 colonies, they were really law enforcement. They weren't really an invading force. I mean, that's how they started, and they were obviously British military. But what they were doing here, their function was they were federal cops. And it's a struggle for me sometimes about the militarization of law enforcement. And I understand. I can kind of see both sides. I understand the need, like, hey, they need the equipment that's going to make them most effective. But I also really cherish and value that accomplishment, that thing that makes us very uniquely American. So talk a little bit more about that. What should people know? People that have concerns like I do, what should we know? Because I think it's a valid concern too.
And I agree completely with you. Should we be doing things like F-16 strikes on a dope house? I don't know. I'm just pulling something out of my butt. Clearly not. But just like AR-15s as an example, do I believe average Earth people should be able to own this quote unquote weapon of war? And do I think the police should use those because they're a very, like famously in SoCal, the North Hollywood shootout?
Yeah.
When you need a rifle, nothing else substitutes. So do I think that average Earth people should be able to have those for a home defense firearm? Absolutely. And they're also great utility. I hunt deer with an AR-15 every year. That it's a great utility gun. So it's a weapon of war. Well, it's militarized, so now the police can't have it. But
It's an effective weapon, is what it is.
it's an effective firearm
Right.
that is useful within its niche.
Right.
And there's always, again, been cross-pollination. Why did bolt-action rifles like 30-06 rifles become the go-to deer gun in the United States?
We just talked about this.
Because it works.
Because so many dudes went to
Oh,
World War.
'cause they came back with,
They went to
Yeah.
World War One. They knew, hey, bolt action rifles work pretty good. I'm trained with one. I'm going to buy one of those because I think it'd make a great deer rifle. There's always been on, like Daniel Boone carried what? Flintlock rifle. What did the army of George Washington carry when we were fighting the Brits? Flintlock rifles.
Sure.
That's always that you can't separate firearms development into military, non-military. I mean, if you're talking, I don't know, napalm, obviously, but firearms, small arms development, no. I mean, it's all going to cross-pollinate. It just is. Where we have to argue about that in the big, and I believe the good separation of police and military is the legal status of what we do and how we do it. Like the U.S. Army is supposed to fight things outside the United States, not like occupying force against our own citizens. I agree with that completely. And that I've seen some bleed over. I've heard of people talk about ROEs or rules of engagement, which they would give you, like if you're overseas in a battlefield environment, just your air defense condition, they'll say weapons hold or weapons free. So let's say I'm a anti-aircraft gunner at World War II. If I'm weapons hold, it's like, hey, we got friendly planes coming in. We don't want to have a friendly fire incident. So don't shoot at anything unless it shoots at you. Okay, good. And now we know the enemy's coming in. So any plane you see, just shoot at it. That's a rule of engagement. The cops can't have that. Cops don't have rules of engagement. We have correct use of force under the Constitution, under Supreme Court guidance of Graham v. Connor and Garner versus Tennessee. Period.
Which is no different than a civilian's. In other words, you guys don't have enhanced laws when it comes to defensive gun use. It's the same as civilians.
There's one slight exception. Like in Kansas, the ability to use deadly force to defend a human life of yourself or a third party is worded exactly the same for cops and non-cops. Exactly the same. The one thing under Garner versus Tennessee doctrine, and we get this from the Supreme Court, is that in certain circumstances, officers can use deadly force to defeat an escape if you have probable cause to believe that the suspect has committed a violent felony and is like attempting to escape through things that would cause deadly harm to other people.
Gotcha.
So let's say let's say you responded to an active shooter event, and when you show up, the guy's running away.
Right. But you know he's, yeah. I
So
gotcha.
the kind of gimme I give people as a thought experiment is you are in a foot pursuit with Charles Manson, and he's just attacked people with a machete. He's carrying a bloody machete. You're in a foot pursuit with Charles Manson, and you're not going to be able to catch him before he makes it to the kindergarten playground. So legally, morally, ethically, do you shoot him in the back to stop him from getting to the kindergarten playground?
So I, obviously that's an extreme example, but are you saying that it sounds like you're saying that cops would definitely have an easier time in court if they took that shot than civilians, than non-cops?
Depending on your state law, yes.
Okay. So, but I think that, and the reason I wanted to dig into that a little bit is I think that is really the heart and soul. That's a meatier discussion when it comes to posse comitatus, the way in which they behave and are treated rather than the equipment that they're using.
Yes.
So the way in which they behave and are treated is the same as a civilian, whereas military is very different because they have rules of engagement. It's a very, very different situation. The fact that they both have flak jackets and armored vehicles is maybe far less significant when it comes to the discussion of posse comitatus.
The armored car thing, it tends to be a big deal with, oh, the cops got tanks. Well, no, they don't. A tank is a specific thing, including it's got a cannon, etc. But I ask people a rhetorical question: why can we protect money with an armored car, but not protect people with an armored car?
Sure, makes sense.
So a lot of what armored cars are used for in some law enforcement instances, like go back in time to, because everybody's heard of like the Texas Tower incident where we had the guy, active shooter.
Charles Whitman, I believe.
Yeah. He was in the Texas Tower, University of Tech, I believe it's the University of Texas, sniping people. He's like an active shooter sniper. And they had all these people, like somebody's hit and they're laying there bleeding. We got to go try and save them. Well, if we can roll up there in an armored car, park between that victim and the gunman, use it as cover, drag them into the truck and drive away, why would we not?
Okay, so now let's hear what's your most controversial. Now that we went over posse comitatus, the difference, militarization of law enforcement, which isn't controversial at all. Let's go into what's your most controversial gun opinion or stance or whatever.
I'm torn between two. One was a discussion yesterday with Dakota, in that you should never use a .22 as a defensive gun. And
where do you fall on that? You're saying
I think there's a place for it.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a place for it, and it depends on your circumstances. Everything is depending on the circumstances. My attributes: do I have arthritis? Am I recoil sensitive? Et cetera, et cetera.
Let's talk about it. So you're saying, like, if someone came to you and said, "Hey, I have condition A, B, and C. I'm going to purchase a .22 caliber pistol for the only function is that this is going to be my defensive weapon." Mm-hmm. You're saying, hey, there could be conditions and circumstances that makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
That is a controversial opinion. I think a lot of.
And I agree with them. I know I've worked with people. I worked with women, people with injuries, older. They can't function or manage something other than.
And then there's other things like I believe if somebody says economically the only way that I'm going to be able to practice consistently and afford ammunition is if I buy .22 versus 9mm, because one is 4 to 5 times more expensive than the other, and I'm recoil sensitive, and when I shoot full caliber pistols it makes me flinch. So now if somebody is recoil blast sensitive, they're going to flinch. They use a .22 that cures them of it. They enjoy the practice. They get good with it. Why would I tell them not to do that? Now, there are ways to go about doing that more successfully than others to make sure your firearm's reliable, your ammunition choices are valid, things like that. But the black and white, the never do this or always do that, I find there's a whole lot of these questions that sit in that gray area.
Yeah. Well, that's a good one, the .22. Alicia, do they make defensive ammo that's .22?
Yeah,
Have you seen that?
Yep.
Yeah. hollow points, or what's
Yeah,
yeah?
they, believe it or not, they do.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen like
Yeah.
22 Magnum, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about
That's true,
22 long.
22 long
long,
rifle.
yeah.
Federal makes
Yeah.
like 22. I've done ballistic testing
Mm-hmm.
on 22 long rifle. The punch line is for a 22 that is effective levels of penetration. And with the small calibers, that's what you want to get is sufficient penetration to get the job done.
Yeah, I don't want to get shot by a 22. If I'm robbing somebody and they shoot me with a 22, I'm going to rethink life.
So if you look at the attributes of what make firearms effective, one of the things I've told people is every 22 rifle, like 22 long rifle shooting that I've attended on the street, every single one of them has been a homicide.
Gotcha.
Like literally no survivors.
They were fatal. Yeah.
Because it's a round that is easy to shoot accurate in a firearm that's easy to shoot accurate with a bullet that penetrates significantly, more than enough to cause a fatal wound.
Gotcha.
And when I tell people that, they raise an eyebrow, and I'm telling them 100% of the 22 rifle shootings I've attended on the street have been fatal.
So I have a question for you, kind of
Okay.
going down that path. You mentioned 22 and the penetration, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about 380? It's larger than the 22, because I know this is a debate too. Larger,
Mm-hmm.
but the depth penetration is less.
Well, I say depending on ammunition choices, no caliber sits in a vacuum, and
Right.
the bullets that you choose, like I can find you ammunition for a common like a Glock 43X, the common 9mm pistol that will shoot almost completely through a grizzly bear, and then other ammunition that has so limited penetration that I would recommend you don't carry it for self-defense because it doesn't have enough penetration on people. And the difference is not the caliber, it's the design of the bullet. 380, if you can handle a 380 but you can't handle a 9mm, I would tell you use a 380 over a 22. If you were strictly looking at wound ballistics and things like some attributes like center fire primer reliability,
Right.
good 22 ammo is not as unreliable as some people make it out to be. Like that 22 punch, I've never had a misfire out of, not
Wow.
one.
Is that's a brand? 22 punch?
It's a line of from Federal,
Okay.
and which is actually they're partnered with CCI Spear. I believe CCI actually makes their 22 and Federal brands it, but you get my point.
Yeah.
And CCI is a pretty good 22 round. When
The mini
we're
mag will
talking-
run through most.
Yeah.
The mini mags are outstanding ammunition. But
So all right, so if someone's going to purchase a 22 caliber pistol for self-defense and use quality self-defense 22 ammo, what pistol are they buying? In Chuck's opinion, the Chuck opinion here.
there's several.
Give me
so-
two. Your two favorite.
So Smith & Wesson and Ruger both make really good snubs in that caliber.
Oh, that's
revolvers.
right. You're a snub nose guy too. That's the other thing. Right? Yeah. So all right, revolver. Is there a semi-auto 22 that you?
The Smith & Wesson M&P Compact, it's kind of a clone of the centerfire M&P. They make a 22 clone. The compact model
Just not available in California.
and the Taurus, it's like I forget the model number.
EX.
It's like the TX 22 compact, something like that. Also, I found both of those more than reliable enough to count on. The really good little guns. There's going to be other examples out there.
But there are legit self-defense quality revolvers and semi-autos in 22 that you'd say, yep, you know what? Maybe not my primary that I'd pick, but if that's your choice, then you're probably going to be good to go.
Just to tweak the internet every once in a while, I will carry a 22 snub revolver
In your pocket,
just to do it.
in your pocket, no holster, without one in the pipe, just no.
Yeah, it's my 8-round high capacity like 22 assault revolver.
Yeah.
And
Do you remember, Alicia? Do you remember it was a couple years ago? I think we were still on the radio. Remember we had that story about a woman who killed a grizzly bear in Alaska with a 22? Do you remember that story?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, vaguely. Yeah.
But I think she was like, I think it was like point. What am I trying to say?
Point blank.
Point
range.
blank, like right in this this grizzly bear's noggin. But yeah, it worked.
The gun that'll work is the one that you are willing and able to work. use.
I remember that one. She's an Alaska Native.
Yes.
I forget which tribe. Might have been Inuit, whatever. But she was at very close range, and the grizzly bear was right there, and she thought she was about to be discovered because she's trying to hide in a bush and be small, and she hit it right in the temple with her .22 rifle, and it worked.
So this was, by the way, this was before the internet trend there, where people were, specifically women, were saying, "Would you rather be in the woods with a bear or a man?" This was before that happened. So you may want to check that story.
1957.
It was in 1957.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought maybe we just found it. I don't know. I remember covering it a couple
I
years
remember
ago.
we talked about it, but
So okay, so 22s for self-defense. That's light up the comments section number 1. What's number 2? Your other controversial.
The always never thing. So it started out and it's kind of thing Dakota's probably heard a lot of, but both of you probably like, hey, little lady, you just need to. And it used to be a 25 automatic. It's a cute little pistol that. And then the 38 snub was, you just need one of these. You don't have to worry about it. You pick it up, press the trigger, and then the pendulum swung the other way. Oh my God, it's the worst gun for women. Never recommend a snub nose revolver for women. And the answer's in the middle. The answer's in the middle. I really started thinking about it differently. I was at sadly, the organization doesn't exist anymore. American Society of Law Enforcement Trainers, ASLIT, and I was at a close quarter class. They do a big annual conference, and they would have blocks of instruction, like 2 to 4 hours or whatever. And you go to these classes, and the class was that I was attending was a gal that was had been a Russian cop and come to America, got the freedom, concealed carry, things like that. She was a huge advocate for snub revolvers for women. And one of the reasons for that was she hit me with the premise, and I'd never really thought about it that way. But then when I started thinking, I'm like, yeah, she's on point. Is for concealed carry ladies is that women get attacked differently than men get attacked.
Interesting.
So let's say
illustrate or talk about that difference. How is it different?
Let's say we have like this scenario, like I'm the creepy guy with the ski mask hiding by the jogging trail waiting for a victim to go by.
Right.
So is that dude going to pick Dakota or is he going to pick me? And what's that attack going to look like? He might jump out of the bushes, punch her in the face, wrap her up, try to drag her off. So women often suffer attacks from men, and we know most 97% of violent criminals are men. Women often suffer a life-threatening, an attack that rises to the level of deadly force through disparity of force, getting beat by a large man. So her summation is that women get attacked differently than men. Often it is violent. It is at very close quarters, and they're involved in a contact shooting type scenario. And she demoed with a dummy gun. She had one of the big guy in class wrapped her up, picked her up in a bear hug off her feet. And she was doing centerline stuff like Craig Douglas and some of my other friends do, where you carry appendix, a knife or a gun. She was able to pop that snub-nosed dummy gun, and she was wearing the like yoga type, the girl pants, stretchy stuff. She pops it out. She doesn't even clear her pants. She gets the barrel all the way behind her back, and she'd have been able to dump all 5 shots into this guy's pelvis, and there was nothing he could do to stop her. And there's no semi-auto pistol that you would get more than 1 shot off in that scenario.
That's interesting. And dudes aren't attacking other dudes from behind. That's not, it's usually.
So let's say you were jogging down the trail. How many dudes are going to try
First off, I'm not jogging down any trail. I don't think I've jogged down a trail since like the Clinton administration, but keep going.
But if you and I were in public, how many guys are going to run up and try to bear hug us? And it's not happening. It would be rare. A knife or a gun, that type of scenario that people think of as classically, whereas a lot of violent criminals could pull off, I'm going to jump on Dakota and beat her up and, stuff her in my trunk or whatever. That's a realistic scenario. I have clients that I've worked with, a modicum, they pick like the Smith or the Ruger snub, modicum of dry fire, give them a dry fire program, less than 50 rounds of live fire, and now they can keep 100% of their shots in the down zero on an IDPA target 10 yards and in. For a rank beginner, is that pretty good? And because I can do dry fire stuff with a revolver that I cannot do with semi-auto pistols, I find I don't steer people towards guns except for quality guns. But some of my clients that like I've met people at their house with a bag of guns, and we go through loading and unloading, how guns work, things like that. And there's been more than a few of them that are like, well, I like a revolver because I'm worried about leaving around in the chamber. I like the simplicity of it, yada, yada, yada. So I teach them how to use their choice effectively.
Gotcha.
And what I found is the idea of always or never, again, it's in the middle. The answer is in the middle.
In the middle. All right, that's a good one. Okay, let's talk about. I want to ask you. Actually, before we go any further, I think I actually know the answer. You were asking. I don't know why they call it a rear naked choke. I think it comes from high school wrestling. I think that because in high school wrestling, you have to have an arm in with the choke, and it's naked if there's no arm in with the choke. So and you're always behind the guy. Like you're never gonna choke somebody in high school wrestling, you know. So you're behind him. You have to have an arm in. You have to have one of his arms in with that. Otherwise, it's naked. I think that's why they call it.
No.
Wrong.
Incorrect.
It's not right. Why? Where does that come from? That's where I learned
We
it.
both Googled
Yeah.
it at the same time. We're like,
Oh,
like,
really?
Casey knows
Yeah,
something.
no.
You guys are
Let's-
googling. You
let's
guys
fact
are
check
cheating it, or you guys?
If
This
you're
is
not
like,
cheating, you're not trying.
I know every week you guys are cheating
So-
by looking up the answer and using facts.
You were kind of close.
Oh, thank you.
Kind of.
Alicia. Yeah.
Partial. Rear
Let
indicates
Dakota
applied-
know I was kind of close, please.
kind of close. Rear indicates it's applied from behind, which you had, while naked signifies it does not require using the opponent's clothing or uniform for leverage. So it does go back to the wrestling world.
In martial,
You're
in
trying to make
martial
me feel
arts, like in judo, virtually anything that, like when you're, what we would think of as choking people is a shimewaze. So
Shimiwaze, what is that?
it's a Japanese word.
Yeah, and what is it? Tell me more about that.
So have you ever seen when people are fighting with gis, like I can use
Oh,
your clothing
gotcha.
to put pressure on your neck. I'll use choke because we know what I'm talking about. I can teach you how to use if you're wearing a t-shirt, I can use your t-shirt to choke you with.
Gotcha.
But I will tell you, choke, just like you got to choke on your lawnmower. What does it do? Cut off the air. What we're talking about with a lateral neck restraint does nothing to choke. There's no cutting off the air, pressure on the larynx, none of that. So technically, it's not a choke.
Gotcha.
It just isn't.
All right. Well, I'm glad we Googled it.
Term
both
of common usage, I guess.
Both of you over there with your Google and your Chat GPT.
Reading further, it is a direct arm-based blood choke. There you go.
Okay, so let's talk about low light. I haven't seen this flare up in a while, but the idea that you don't want your light to be too bright because it'll flood, you won't be able to see, it'll cause flood, and blah blah
You'll
blah
go
blah.
blind. You'll get blindness.
So don't get a light that's too bright on your weapon, for your weapon light or whatever you're using with a weapon.
Patently ridiculous.
It is, right?
It's absolutely ridiculous. So,
and by the way, it takes about 3 seconds to just, get out of bed and go try it and see that it's completely ridiculous. I don't know how that myth took hold.
So many people are worried that you're going to like misuse it, bounce it off the wall, self-blind, things like that. Is it possible? Could I hold the flashlight backwards and shine it in my own face? I could, but maybe don't do that.
Hopefully, I'm not that stupid.
If we're going to argue that type of potential misuse, should I be using a handgun at all? I could shoot my big toe off, but we take measures to not do that. So my experience with that, when I got into the police world, a lot of things we take for granted didn't exist. Flashlights had some of the lumens, a few of the lumens.
Yeah.
The first time I bought a Surefire light was after my issued the rechargeable light they had in the cars had crapped the bed on me in the middle of searching a basement for a murder suspect. And he was there, and I was using a mini mag light, if you're familiar with those.
Oh, yeah.
That has a few of the lumens. I tell people now I want all of the
All
lumens.
the lumens.
All the lumens.
Every single one of them.
Part of my background was, so I was SWAT for 18 years. I was a night shift cop for 25 years. I started in low light training back when Ken Good, he's a retired Navy SEAL, was in charge of the Surefire Institute. Eventually that turned into Strategos International. I was an adjunct instructor with them for I don't know how long. So one of the things that I was teaching was law enforcement low light instructor tactics classes. And I was teaching that, helping teach that for a couple of decades. Got a lot of experience with it. As flashlights, the first Surefire 6P I had, the ad copy said 65 lumens of blinding white light. And it was a step up.
Yeah.
Everybody thought I was insane. After my incident in the basement, I bought, in the days before Al Gore invented the internet, you had to like cut the ad out of the magazine and send your money order in. And Laser Products, Surefire didn't even exist, mailed me a light that cost $50. Everybody thought it was insane for buying this light.
And that is that like $80s or $90s?
Yes. Yeah.
$50 back then was $50, man.
Well, $20 back then, you could go out drinking beer with your buddies all night, and get a hamburger. And you can't do that now. But then we got, then they improved the light. It was 120, then 300. Oh my goodness, when's it going to stop? 1,000 lumens is a pretty common light nowadays. I tell people commonly, until my light has recoil or I can't use it on a red flag day because I'll start a brush fire, until those two things happen, I want more lumens.
You're not satisfied. Back in the day when I was a kid, you had I remember we had a couple options. You had the L-shaped green
Army flashlight,
Army flashlight. And then my old man was a scuba diver, and so he had like this enormous, dive light with that big, huge battery, whatever, I don't know what that was. But
the 6-volt square
Yes.
that had the little springs on the top.
Exactly. And that dive light is the equivalent of like these tiny little Surefires on weapon lights now, but it was like, it was a freaking.
I've got a stiletto. I got 1,000 lumens in my pocket right now.
It's phenomenal. I think it's great. I think it's absolutely wonderful. Okay, so building on that, what about the whole idea of giving away your position? You have a light on, you're giving away your position.
That's one thing that's possible if you do it incorrectly. That's what we call doing it wrong.
Obviously, you teach all curriculum on it. You can't teach the whole class, here and now, but like in a nutshell, what's right?
So I'm a big believer in utilizing handgun lights. And if we are let's say I'm a beat cop and I got to search a building for a burglar, there's techniques we can use like a modified FBI where we utilize the light offset in a chaotic manner that is, until you see it, it's tough to get the point across, but it misdirects people's attention. Done correctly, like a guy he's the sheriff of my county now, but he was one of my recruit officers back in the day. He had an incident at the end of his police career where he confronted a guy, potential armed robbery suspect. It turned out to be the guy, and he was using offset light, and the first round that the guy fired hit my buddy through the forearm. And then when I talked to him after the shooting, checking on him, things like that, he's like, yeah, that training we got, he's utterly convinced that it saved his life. Like in a broad daylight, nothing that he could use tactically to misdirect the suspect, he would have probably got shot in the face.
Interesting.
So everything, every tool, like firearms, OC spray, flashlights, all tools can be poorly used, and if you choose poor tactics, it's not the tool's fault.
Interesting. And what is one thing? What's a piece of advice you need to give people, or people should have when it comes to using pepper spray? What's a tidbit, a best practice?
Get some valid training from somebody who knows what they're talking about. I have people all the time. They're like, "It's spray. You spray people." What is there to know?
Yeah. How do people screw it up?
Poor grip, misdirect. They miss on the first shot. Just gripping it incorrectly can make it very tough to hit your target. And so just like with a handgun, it's easy to miss a vital zone and your bullets are ineffective. That's more common than not. So the K5 ring with pepper spray is right in the eyes. If you don't hit people on the eyeball or in the eye, the section of the eye socket, your pepper spray is probably not going to be effective. So marksmanship is an issue.
And the thing about pepper spray, correct me if I'm wrong, but the thing about pepper spray that I think some people get wrong, if they're criticizing pepper spray and they go, it's not going to do anything or whatever. I think the thing that they get wrong is after you spray, you're not hanging out.
Yeah.
It's a diversion, like spray and then get out of there. You're not hanging out. You're not using pepper spray so that you can hold this person for the cops. Pepper spray distracts that person, disorients that person so you can flee.
I would argue it's in the scenarios we look at, it's more effective for not cops than it is for cops. So I found it to be really effective in the police world. Like 90% of the time you spray them, it takes the fight out of the fighter, you muscle them into cuffs, it's done. And if we know that to be true, and it is true in the police world, what do the cops have to do that regular people don't have to do? They got to walk up and lay hands on the dude. So in a street scenario, regular people can hit them and disengage and make distance. It's more effective than that scenario than it is in the police scenario. Because if I lay hands on the guy, even if he can't see me, he immediately knows where I'm at. He still can fight. He can index me and fight. Whereas if I use it to make distance, now he has to have enough visual acuity to be able to see me, follow me, things like that.
Now, is there a product that you particularly, not necessarily a brand, but like the pepper gel versus the spray or anything? Is there anything you particularly dislike or like?
Gel is oversold because oh my God, it's going to blow back on you. I've personally been sprayed with one of the major brand gel products 3 times. I've exposed 36 correction officer students in a law enforcement live scenario where we spray the people with the product. Gel is slow acting, 30 seconds a minute, minute and a half before it kicks in and causes some dysfunction. Yep. Not a fan of it. It's, like the meme says, ain't nobody got time for that.
Wow. So you don't like the gel?
I don't like the gel at all.
Okay, so get the spray.
So it's all technically spray.
Or what's the right term? If it's not gel, it's...
You got streamers, you got cone-shaped mist, there's foam, which there's one really good foam product, and you got the big ones. The
fogger. And
you got like bear foggers that, it's like a small fire extinguisher kind of thing.
That sounds like the one for me right there.
If you want to carry a fire extinguisher around,
I do.
But for EDC size, pocket size, most people should be picking the things like a palm that are small enough to truly EDC. It's going to be a streamer by default because that's the only thing. The larger law enforcement, like cops wear on their belt type cans, those choices are a cone or a stream.
Well, they're actually illegal in California. California's got a limit, right? 3 ounces or something like that?
Under 2.5.
2.5 ounces.
Up to 2%.
That's still a pretty big. Yeah. So the can that I carried on my cop belt was a 2-ounce can.
Gotcha.
Which is that's an MK3 sized unit. Yeah. That's still a pretty decent sized pepper spray.
Okay. I actually, before we got CCWs in San Diego, I was a big proponent of people carrying pepper spray. I didn't know what I didn't know as far as training, which I think applies to a lot of people. Yeah. But I would buy multiple cans, I'd carry it around with me, and a lot of the time I was working downtown. I was working for a bank, and I would go to lunch, and I would put my cell phone and my pepper spray out on the table, and so often the waitress would comment on it. And I'd make some joke like, well, in case your Caesar salad isn't spicy enough or whatever, ha, 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 ha. Yeah. But then they'd ask, well, what exactly is it or whatever. And I gave away many bottles of pepper spray saying, here, I've only had this for a month. It's, check the expiration, don't keep it for more than a year or two or whatever. And, it was, I think that it's a viable option. I think that I've heard people kind of think that it's an A or a B choice. In other words, well, I'm not going to carry a gun. I'm going to carry pepper spray, and I don't think that's a fair.
Not at all.
Yeah, it's
Or
they're two,
even
it's
worse.
apples and I'm going to eat an apple. I'm not going to eat an orange. I mean, they're very different things. I don't think they're a substitute for each other.
They are not. They're very different tools for very different scenarios, and it's ridiculous. Like I've seen, there's a T-shirt out there. It's got a little picture of a Glock that says "Not a pepper spray kind of girl."
Yes.
What's that supposed to mean? I'm only willing to use lethal force.
Right.
So I got that shirt somehow. I don't know. Somebody left it at a range event or something for me, and so I ended up with it. And we just had an outdoor shooting event. And one of the things I do sometimes is I'll clasp shirts over targets so that they can try to hit and see, like,
Yes.
on the USPSA target behind how good their hits are through the shirt. So those were exclusively shoot at the shirts. I was like, and all the girls are like, these are so cute. I was like, no, you cannot have that, because what's that going to look like to a jury if you have a photo on social media of you wearing this shirt that basically says, I'm going to shoot anybody even if they
Yeah.
don't deserve to be shot. That's what that's saying.
I'd say that to people, especially here in San Diego. I would say, what if you're attacked by a homeless? Are you going to shoot a homeless guy, like some crazy homeless guy, when they're
That
just
isn't-
trying to
that isn't rising to the level of I need to shoot this guy or I might die. Like, no.
I think that would help kind of illustrate and would register with them. Like, oh yeah, I see what you're
It's
saying.
not. It's not the who. It's why.
It's
the why.
I have commonly asked people Socratic question in class is I'll ask people, like, here in this room, how many of you have utilized deadly force?
Not deadly force.
Have you been in a scenario where you had to pull your pistol, shoot somebody, or something like that?
Not deadly force. I have used pepper spray.
So a lot of times when I'm in a class, it's just me. It didn't make me better than anybody. It just happens to be that way. Why has nobody else in the room ever been in deadly force? Have used defensive deadly force?
Why haven't? I think it's just
Because
a very rare situation.
You have, because that's a very high hurdle.
Yeah.
That you were not under reasonable fear of death or great bodily harm to the point that you knew, I have to do this to save my own life or the life of another. Now, how many times have you been in a scenario where you thought, this guy's acting creepy, he's acting weird, he's about to punch me in the face, he's about to snatch my purse, he's about to kick my dog, but like, especially guys being creepy to ladies, and I think this he's creeping up on me, I think he's going to try and do a purse snatch. Can you shoot the guy for that?
Absolutely
You clearly cannot. You're going to go to prison for that. Can you use physical force to defend yourself? Like if the guy grabs your purse, legally, morally, ethically, can you punch him in the face?
Yeah.
Both are saying yes.
Yeah.
You can.
Right. They
So-
can I, should I?
But should
So-
I? Yeah.
But I'm just saying things that people are like, yeah, if a guy grabs my purse, I can punch him in the face. Okay, we agree on that. So why would I not have pepper spray for this much more common scenario that is a low hurdle? I was in reasonable fear that he was about to physically assault me or snatch my purse, whatever the case, whatever your scenario. That's a much, much lower level hurdle. And it's a shockingly common scenario that we see on the street.
It is, and I've actually been in that situation a number of times. I was never able to get their purse, but I have been in that situation. So I get it. I understand. How many times, honestly, how many times have you, Dakota and Alicia, how many times, if you had to guesstimate in your adult life or in your life, how many times have you been in a creepy situation where you thought, man, this might go sideways with this creepy guy? Like if you really had to put a number on it.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I can't even really put a number on. Dozens, for sure.
Hundreds?
I worked downtown for 5.5 years.
Yeah.
And it was almost a daily occurrence either on my walk. I had to park 3 blocks from my building for most of that 5.5 years.
Wow. So
Either on
that's
the
probably
way
hundreds then.
To or from, there almost daily, there was some sort of, had to be an extra careful, aware, getting followed, somebody coming that didn't appear to be waiting for the elevator, kind of coming from the side to get in the same elevator as me. I would pretend like I forgot something and wouldn't get in the elevator, but like those kinds of things were very, very common.
So a situation where if you and I were both there, like it wouldn't have happened to me. It happened to you because you're Dakota, and I'm. It probably this
Yes,
it would.
I am a magnet personally. this person is a magnet. No, I mean,
But I mean, because you're a
100%
woman.
If I was with a man,
Well, I don't mean with
no. If I was walking alongside
Yeah,
a man,
gotcha.
that would have been a different situation.
I
for-
would. I
for
could have
most
taken the
people.
same route, the same time, the same day,
Yeah,
same
for
people,
sure.
and I wouldn't have
Would
been in
not have been
danger. But
targeted.
you would have
100%.
hundreds of times this happened. Alicia,
I don't know how to quantify, not hundreds. I will say that I did grow up in a bad area. I did also have to take the bus and trolley every day of my life up through my early 20s, and I had quite a few as well. Just, you're in places where there's people that are unstable.
Well, San Diego
Yeah.
trolley.
Yeah.
That place is
Yeah.
freaking
Yeah.
horrible.
High
It
school
really
all the
is.
way through my early 20s.
I
That was
have
my
a
regular.
bad
Yeah.
trolley experience, and I've only taken the trolley like 4 times
Yeah.
in my life.
Yeah,
and one of them was not fun.
It really is. It's like a mobile, creepy, homeless
Yes.
toilet.
Yes.
It's really. I mean, it's really bad.
Pretty much,
Unless
yeah.
you're going to a Padres game,
Yeah.
I'd rather
1
pay
out
the
of
park-
5
I'd rather
stars
pay the parking.
would not.
I'd
would
rather
not
pay the
recommend.
parking. Right.
So, Chuck, I think the guys. I think that many men are surprised. I don't think we really fully understand that men and women, although physically on the same planet, live in different worlds.
Yeah.
I don't think people really truly realize that or appreciate it as much.
I
as
don't
they should.
think a lot of what I call the tactical dude bros they don't think about it at all. I really started. I didn't either. In my 20s, I used to have attributes it's going to sound braggadocious. I used to have attributes I no longer have. Like I had cartilage in my knees, I had hair on my head, things I don't have anymore. There was a time in my life, like my SWAT team PT test, I could run my 2-mile run in 12:30 flat. My deadlift was 595. I had some capacity that I don't have anymore. And, some of the guys are like, well, I don't need pepper spray because I've got like Krav Maga or jiu-jitsu or whatever. So do I. And you know what they got me? Hep B positive, exposures,
Hurt.
covered in other people's blood. I had to fight a guy one time and we're headed to jail and I'm driving the car and I'm calling it in and I look down and there's things hopping on me. I've picked up critters,
Fleas or something.
fleas, lice, whatever it was. I was tempted to just burn the uniform, And if I have a tool, like I ask people Socratically, let's say the force existed and I could teach you, everybody wants to do the Darth Vader force choke. But what if I could teach you, remember the Three Stooges, you poke people in the eye?
Yeah.
What if I could teach you to do a Three Stooges on an opponent from 12 feet away?
Yeah, that would be best.
How much would you pay for that class?
Endless amounts of money.
So for $12.95 or whatever, I can give you a tool that accomplishes the same thing.
You're talking pepper
Yes.
spray.
Pepper spray.
Yeah.
So, but guys are almost insulted. Well, I've got well, so do I. And you know what that gets you? Busted up elbows, blood exposure. Why would I do that? It's ridiculous.
It
But
is.
then when I had daughters,
Yeah.
now suddenly I was like, man, I need to really think about like how do I make my daughters safe in the world as well? And then I paid attention more and more. And Dakota and I have had long discussions about this, about the BS that women have to put up with that guys don't.
It's a ton.
Yes.
There is kind of this progression with guys. It's like, hey, I got to protect myself. I better, lift weights and learn to box. And then it's, hey, I've lifted weights and learned to box. I can protect myself. But then somewhere along the way, and then when you get into later life, it's, I don't want to do any of that. I can't anymore and I don't want to. But in between that, there is kind of this wisdom. I don't know, maybe it comes around in your 40s where you're just like, I lift weights, I can box. I don't want to do any of this stuff. I don't want to do any of that because I don't want to get hurt. I don't want them to hurt me. I'm already, getting out of bed a lot slower than I did 10 years ago. But there is like that wisdom that comes from that I don't think I had when I was 20. When I was 20, I lived in San Francisco from 18 to 21. And I would take their trolley, it was actually called the Muni, to work. I worked at this hotel in downtown San Francisco. And it was right where the tourists on Powell Street, where they did the trolley turnaround, So there were a lot of tourists. I took an X-Acto knife out of a woman's hand who was ready to stab another woman, and the other woman had pepper spray. I wrestled a guy to the ground and then kicked him off at the next stop. I chased down at least a half dozen purse snatchers. It was fun. I was like 21 years old. Nothing could harm me. This is great. Like, I almost looked forward to it. That is the stupidest attitude, you know? And it was seriously, it got to the point where I was just like, I wonder what's going to happen today. I don't have that attitude anymore at all. And I think that I think that wisdom, I wish it would come earlier in life.
Yeah, you're kind of describing experience.
Maturity.
That's where wisdom comes from, I suppose, you know?
Well, and if you don't know, Mike, I'm actually, for Not Me, doing a pepper spray class using the curriculum that I got from Chuck when I did your pepper spray instructor course years ago. I'm running that in April for part of the Not Me Sexual Awareness Month.
Nice. Yeah. How do people sign up for that?
Just go to notmeca.org, and it's going to be held on April 8th. So if you'd like to join, it's a
Fantastic.
great opportunity. Yeah.
Let's do something fun. Let's take a look at a video. I found this video. It's a report on a defensive gun use, and I just absolutely love the couple involved. So let's take a look at it, and then let's talk about it. Let's do a little.
David and Mary Hubert have lived in their house in Garden Hills for more than 20 years and say they have never had any issues with crime until Monday night. They were watching movies on different floors of their house around 7 when a man barged into the bottom floor and threatened David.
You walk to somebody that's in your house and you say, "Can I help you?" And they say, "Get out. This is my house. Get out of my house." And they're cursing and belligerent.
David was able to quickly lock himself into a room and call 911. Meanwhile, Mary heard the commotion from upstairs, so she quickly grabbed her gun from under her pillow and hid.
Got my sweet Jane.
That's the name of her 38.
And waited. He didn't know where I was, and I could see from the mirrors in the bathroom, from my view, I could see if anybody came in.
David stayed on the phone with Atlanta police until they arrived, not knowing where Mary was. Meanwhile, David says the suspect was going room to room through their house.
Apparently he was upstairs smoking and wandering around the house, and he had taken all the family pictures and turned them over face down.
When police arrived, David was able to get out, but he still couldn't reach Mary for more than an hour.
I don't know what her status is. I don't know where she is, but I know she's capable of defending herself, and that if anybody ever broke in, they better hope they get me and not Mary.
Police arrested the suspect and cleared the scene. Strangely enough, their dog, Bobby, slept through the entire 3-hour ordeal.
We're giving her an F for the dog, and Mary gets an A, and I'll take a C.
And now, the Huberts tell me they're grateful to Atlanta police, but mostly to God, that they both made it out alive.
I was praying so hard. They were answered.
I absolutely loved everything about that story. I loved the couple. I think they're amazing. The best part of that is they were describing somebody breaking into their home and their lives were basically in danger, and her in the background, like the thing that she was most disappointed about was the profanities.
That made me chuckle too.
These guys are awesome.
She's making cookies.
Yeah. But the profanities.
Well, sweet Jane.
She could handle the break-in.
Yeah.
She could handle the weapon, the violence, having to get her gun, Mary Jane. But the profanities, was that absolutely necessary? The other thing is, if you close your eyes, didn't that guy sound like Tommy Lee Jones? Like exactly like Tommy Lee Jones?
I have to rehear it. I don't know.
Specifically from No Country for Old Men. Anyway,
Accent's a little bit different, but his delivery was like very similar.
Yeah, right.
I'd say, like how he like his delivery of speech was very similar.
His cadence, but
yeah.
Anyway, what did you think about that? What did you think about this couple? By the way,
she had that little 38.
She had a little 38.
Big 30.
How creepy is it that this guy was flipping pictures over?
So strange.
Isn't that seems like
strange behavior.
That's like behavior. That's not why would he?
I would wonder what his
intoxicants.
I would bet perhaps schizophrenic, chemically altered, something like that, because there was obviously something not right in that guy's brain housing unit that makes that some sort of weird priority. People often try to but why would you're trying to think logically about an illogical situation.
Well, but it sounded like something that you'd see in like a Silence of the Lambs movie or something like that. You know what I mean? Like this person was preparing to do something horrific, and that it was easier for that person to do something horrific if they didn't think of them as a family with family pictures. Maybe I've seen too many movies, but it was such a creepy.
It's a human thing that if you think of in the olden days when they would do like a firing squad, what they do, they would put a hood on that guy and take his face away so that it was like less of a human thing. So maybe crazy dude didn't want the people in the pictures looking at him, or a reminder that these were human beings that he was victimizing, things like that.
Well, so this is the first time I saw it a couple times and just fell in love with it. But first time you guys seen it, anything in particular you want to point out that they did right, that they did wrong?
What they did worked, and they both survived. They were both unharmed. That's solid. The fact that she had a backup plan, she fell back. Claude Werner talks about like tasks in a home invasion that you have to work on. One of them is retrieve your firearm, is like get to where it's at and then retrieve it and make yourself ready. That's a task that she successfully accomplished in her home invasion scenario. So she basically hid, bunkered up, and then had a last resort to defend herself. Solidly done. I'm gonna like a vintage Model 10 revolver. That's pretty cool.
That was.
But
how appropriate. I picked that clip for your visit here.
So, and they both had presence of mind under pressure. So, and they both survived, and it worked. So I can't hate on any of it.
There you go, win-win.
It also seems that they've either had discussions. He said, I know she can take care of herself. They've done time together. They've trained. They've had, they've talked. They've discussed things. He had a faith in that, which tells me they put some time into some thought.
Just mental
wargaming, right?
Mental wargaming and playing what if,
right,
is a thing.
Yep.
Visualization is a training technique.
Yep.
What do you think, Dakota? What do you got?
I think I just want to highlight that even when the police are there, you are still your own first responder.
Yeah.
The article says that for more than an hour after police arrived, they did not make contact with Mary, which means that Mary was hidden in her home with this guy wandering around her house, and police were on the scene but not able to contact her. So didn't know if she was being violently assaulted and killed, didn't know if she was successfully hidden, had no context for what was happening inside that home. And they were there. So when people talk about like police response time, it's not just the response time. It's the response time and the time to actually stop the threat, which is a much different thing than the first cop showing up at your house. So that stood out to me, that she was in there for over an hour with this guy with no real help on the way.
She wasn't alone, though. She wasn't alone.
She had
Mary Jane, or Sweet Jane, or whatever.
Sweet Jane with her.
I'm going to imagine they showed up. The gentleman exited. Yeah, the guy's in there. Is he armed? We don't know. My wife's in there. I don't know where she's at. They probably defaulted to treating it like a hostage job at that point.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the cops, why do we start doing the time talk tactics, get negotiators, get a SWAT team? We might have to do a hostage rescue. Why do we do that? Because historically, if the cops go barging in,
it makes things worse.
Then
if
it turns it
situation.
like the classic bank alarm. The cops show up when the bank robbers are still inside. We want to turn it into a hostage scenario and work the process, because that we know that saves lives. We barge in, we got a running gun battle in the lobby, a bunch of innocent people get hurt. So there's that weighing of what do we do next?
Yeah.
And I imagine they defaulted to, we're going to treat it like a hostage scenario. Okay, now we can't make contact, so we're going to have to do something else.
Maybe they're setting up like a sniper somewhere to try to get a shot through a window or whatever. Like, I'm not saying that the police response was bad. The police response may have been just fine. But if this situation had been different and she was being attacked
Yes.
that entire time, she would be dead, and we'd have another sad story of police outside the house while somebody's getting killed inside, and they just don't know what's happening.
And you can't
Not saying that the police
can't
response was incorrect, but
Yeah.
you can't rely on the police response.
I'm
to
not discounting that. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that's probably what happened.
Yes, 100%.
So I'm agreeing with you in that you can probably continue to count on that happening.
Right.
And you can't rely on a dog, apparently.
Yeah.
That beagle didn't.
And that's my point, I guess, is you can't
Wasn't
rely
around.
on anyone except yourself and your skills and your training.
That is a good point.
You are the only person who can save yourself.
The two things that every piece of that was beautiful. I just thought there was a great everything about that. But two things I particularly liked was the fact that she went into a defensive position.
Yeah.
There was no I'm going to clear the room or whatever. I'm not going to there was no I'm going to go confront them. She went into a defensive position and stayed there until she was safe with her firearm. But the other thing is, and I already forgot their names, but the guy put himself, it sounds like, basically put himself between them and the wife. It sounds like he could have gone with her and chose not to. And what a guy! I thought that if I'm reading it right, that's what it sounded like to me. But what a guy! Good for him. Was that the right thing to do? He probably should have retreated and gone with her. But the fact that it sounded like the way I interpreted it is he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna at least put myself between them and her to slow them down or whatever." I don't know his mindset or what he was thinking, but good for you, man. That's a real man right there. Maybe not I understand. Maybe not the best choice. Maybe not the textbook choice, but God damn it, good for you. So anyway, all right. Okay, so let's talk about one more thing and then we'll wrap up. So, kind of funny, kind of not, but there's something I needed to bring up and I want to talk about. In the past year, I have heard of more people unintentionally putting holes in themselves that they weren't born with. They've used their firearm. Actually, they're going to talk about three in particular. I'm not going to talk names or even really go into specifics, but there were three people who shot themselves in the hand while they were cleaning their firearm. Now I understand, which is it's hard to imagine, because I think that we talk about safety measures that we go through, but I also don't want people who are hearing this to just completely poo-poo this, like, well, that'll never happen to me. I would be willing to bet that all three of these people didn't think it would ever happen to them either. So I'm definitely encouraging people to take steps so that it really, truly doesn't happen to you. But I also wanted to talk about, it gives us an opportunity to illustrate something else that's going on specifically to San Diego. All three of them had to retain an attorney. And they had to retain an attorney because they shot themselves in the hand. They went to the hospital. The hospital is a mandatory reporter. So the hospital said, hey, San Diego PD, here's what we got. And San Diego PD questioned them. San Diego PD said, okay, we're not going to do anything. It's obviously an accident. We're just going to move on. I'll file the report, but, have a good night and heal quickly or whatever. And then it was later the city attorney's office, okay, not the district attorney. So please make sure that let me just talk about the difference real quick. The district attorney prosecutes felonies and misdemeanors across the entire county. The city attorney is actually the attorney for the city council of the city of San Diego. Their jurisdiction is only the city of San Diego. They have very limited ability to prosecute misdemeanors. Now, we had a city attorney a couple years ago named Mara Elliott, and now we have a city attorney named Heather Ferbert. Heather actually worked for Mara Elliott. Mara Elliott is a anti-gun zealot to the most extreme degree that you can imagine. Heather and the city attorney's office still are. So what they are doing is they're looking at this report, this mandatory report from a hospital, and then they are prosecuting these people. So they did something boneheaded, accidental, whatever, choose your adjective. They shot themselves, they injured themselves unintentionally, went to the hospital, got treatment, and then the city attorney is choosing to prosecute them because they're anti-gun. Now, I can give you a lot of examples of why I think they're anti-gun. They go to anti-gun rallies. They participate with anti-gun organizations. But let me tell you a quick story. This is actually right around the time it happened during COVID. COVID was 2020, right? 2020? Yeah. So this is 6 years ago, 2020, right before COVID happened. I go to a meeting with an FFL, local FFL, to an ATF. I've told the story before, but let me recap it. It was with the ATF. The ATF, basically, it was the most intimidating meeting I've ever been to. I'm not easily intimidated. And myself and the FFL walked out of that meeting going, they're coming after us. The ATF, it was basically an entire meeting of how they were going to come after us for stupid stuff like purchasing or actually receiving a gift that's an off-gun roster from a family member out of state, stuff like that. It was truly a meeting of, hey, this is how we're going after you. Now, the interesting part of the meeting is there were a bunch of suits off to the side that I didn't recognize, and I found out later, I actually rode down in the elevator with them, they were staff from the city attorney's office. They were there to figure out how to go after gun owners. That was the entire purpose of them showing up at this meeting. So when I say that they're a predatory outfit, the city attorney's office in San Diego, I mean it. They really, truly are coming after you. So fortunately, I haven't actually heard of anybody that's done any jail time. You know, all these three retained an excellent attorney who we all really like and know. He got them off, but it's still, you know, I'm ballparking here. It's still close to $10,000 in fees to pay an attorney to get you off after you shot yourself in the hand. And the city attorney's office comes after you. So I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to really illustrate that that is going on. That is the state of affairs here in San Diego. And again, that's only the city of San Diego. If the city attorney can't come after you if you're in the city of Santee or the city of Carlsbad or the city of San Marcos or whatever. You have to be within the city limits to do that. But it is appalling to me that they go after somebody injured that way. It's boneheaded that these three men made a mistake. It's absolutely boneheaded. Again, I would caution you from severe judgment. We're all human. We're all flawed. But it is predatory and highly offensive and just horrible that the city attorney's office is coming after you. So, Chuck, as a cop, what are your thoughts on the story I just told?
It's unfortunate that your city attorney's office is engaged in that kind of predatory behavior. I'd say if you looked at the course of the investigation, if somebody had done something in public to endanger other people that was clearly negligent and then had a negligent discharge, okay, maybe. But when you do something like absent-minded gun handling is typically what we have happening in a case like this. And you under inattention, you do something you shouldn't have done. There's no criminal intent. There's no overt negligence. This is the functional equivalent. And go back to the mindset of, oh, well, it'll never happen to me. The whole safety sin. I would never do that because I'm squared away gun guy. How many of us in this room have had a fender bender?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
Moment of inattention, whatever the case may be. I would tell you the level of inattention it takes to have a fender bender or the wrong moment of inattention. How many of us have made a typo? How many of us you're looking at yourself pushing a button on the computer knowing that you're pushing the wrong button and you do it anyway?
Yep.
That ever happened to you? So if we don't have full time and attention to what we're doing, the task at hand, and you do something like press the trigger with a round in the chamber, the gun is going to work as designed. So we have to be very sober to that fact, and not enough people inculcate the four firearm safety rules into their training, where we really engage in that.
To be clear, by the way, all three of them were cleaning their firearms in their home by themselves.
Yes.
I think like one of them, like their wife was in the house or whatever.
Yeah,
but no, they weren't screwing around. They weren't acting irresponsibly.
And we're not talking about people going on their back porch on New Year's Eve and like shooting off rounds into the air or whatever. Like those are cases where I'd expect the city attorney to want to come after somebody for negligence and say, hey, maybe you're not smart enough to own a gun.
Or even you're fiddling around with your gun, I don't know, in a restaurant, or you do something like that in public. You do something overtly negligent. Sure.
Which, by the way, Dakota, it's an excellent point there. The laws that they're using to prosecute, that was the intent of the law, is to stop that kind of behavior.
Yes.
You know, again, it's hard, by the way, it's really hard to stick up for somebody that shoots himself in the hand unintentionally.
But here we are trying.
I know. I get it. So please, I understand it's really hard to stick up for that person. But there is a very big difference between somebody on New Year's Eve that shoots up into the sky or whatever, somebody that acts irresponsibly, and then somebody who makes a mistake or does something that, unintentional in that way. But that's how they're abusing public policy in order to further an anti-gun and anti-civil rights agenda. And I just think it's horrible.
I'd be curious and it's just because it's an anti-gun, that's the politics of it.
Yeah.
How many people are injured by power tools in the city of San Diego? And it's the same level of inattention. Oops, do they criminally prosecute those people?
One of my coworkers literally just cut multiple fingers off his hand on accident with a table saw.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
And
Did he
can't
get
his
prosecuted?
fingers back.
Can we turn that person in?
He didn't get prosecuted. Right? It's like, that's a great point. There's more damage done to personal, fingers, whatever, from people being silly in other ways, working on a car and a jack slips and you crush your bones or what, there's all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So the penal code that they're using, let me just give that to you, let me read it to you. So California Penal Code 246.3 prohibits willfully, which I think is an important keyword, willfully discharging a firearm or BB device in a grossly negligent manner that could result in injury or death. It is a wobbler.
It I think it's that, but I think there's also a city. I think there's a city ordinance that says. I'm going to sum it up, and I don't have it in front, but in essence, it basically says you can't discharge a firearm in this zone, and the only carve out is if you're doing it from self-defense. So they may be using both, or whatever, but essentially that's what they're using against is.
Shooting within city limits, I think, was something specific to the city of San Diego.
So it's unfortunate. It's really gross. The other thing is, go ahead.
I'll say section 33.104, discharge of a firearm. Yep.
The other thing is, elections matter. We could have stopped this. There was an election. We didn't have the support we needed in order to get a good city attorney in there. We have a good district attorney, but she's not going to be there for forever. This is the kind of damage that can happen. People wonder all the time, San Diego County Gun Owners, the organization, is completely focused on local, 18 city councils, the county board. And people kind of go, all the excitement's happening in Sacramento or Washington, D.C. This is the kind of damage they can do to you on these local boards and councils. This predatory, stuff that's happening on a daily basis on Main Street. But I got to tell you, I am discouraged by the volume. I can't believe I know three. There are three people in the past year that have unintentionally put a hole in themselves while cleaning a gun. That part we can work on and improve. The other part we can work on and improve is continuing to get the right people elected. But I just definitely wanted to make sure everybody aware that, hey, you make a mistake here, you are making yourself vulnerable to a very anti-gun politician, number one, and number two, you're out $8,000 to $10,000, and then it's a little bit better than a crapshoot on whether or not you're going to get prosecuted. Our attorney, well, the attorney that we work with, Gary Gibson, he's been on the show. He's gotten all of them off, and that's great. But, things in court's always a crapshoot.
That's on top of all the medical bills, because you're probably, $10, $15, $20,000 in medical bills on top of that, potential of permanent dysfunction, et cetera.
And possibility of getting your CCW revoked, right? There's all sorts of other pieces of that as well. The city attorney's office here in San Diego has been notorious for things we've talked about on the show, like gun violence restraining orders. But part of probably a lot of people don't know how important that city attorney's position is for gun owners to care about. Part of the city attorney's office is a gun violence prevention unit and a gun violence response unit. They work directly with SDPD to supposedly reduce gun violence. That's their whole entire goal. That's the purpose of this portion of the city attorney's office. So that comes into account with things like gun violence restraining orders, advising the police department on whether or not they can get a search warrant for certain firearms related crimes, firearm destruction petitions, all sorts of things like that. But the unit also leads what's called the San Diego Countywide Gun Relinquishment Task Force. That's literally the name of a unit that the office of the city attorney oversees here in San Diego. So when you vote for city attorney, you're voting for someone who has a lot of sway and a lot of potential reach with this unit that is literally there to remove guns from people. So keep that in mind when you're voting.
All right. Anything else we need to touch on? I think we're going to wrap the show up. I think we've hit all the high points and some of the low points. And I even got to make a joke or two. It's awesome. I know you guys are thankful for that. Chuck, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the show with us.
Thanks for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it.
How do people find out more about you?
My website is www.agiletactical.com. I wanted agile training, but somebody else, some computer company owns it. So you get the domain name the internet gods give you. But agiletactical.com. And I do, obviously, I like to travel. I do traveling training.
And asking for a friend, how do you spell agile?
Agile.
All right. I'll take your word for it. I don't know. But awesome, Chuck. Thank you. That's cool.
Yeah, I do. So I can't give a lot of details, but I'm a law enforcement expert witness on 2 cases, state of California, state of New York, where there's lawsuits over gun rights. So I do consulting for self-defense, expert witness. Yes, they did the right thing, etc. So I do the training, do consulting. A lot of what I've done has been expert witness work, defending police officers in use of force cases. Weirdly enough, I was actually a defense expert on a homicide trial once, which is a weird place for me to be as a cop, because typically you're trying to put the homicide suspect in prison. And it was such a miscarriage of justice that I took the gig to defend the guy. And weirdly, so it was a negligent discharge, fatal. It was a really tragic case. And did the guy screw up? Yes. Were there mitigating circumstances also? But they were charging him with murder 1.
Wow. That's interesting.
How did it turn out?
He ended up with a involuntary manslaughter conviction, which
seems appropriate or from the very little you've said, that seems like a lot more appropriate of a thing than murder 1.
It would be a whole story on what happened, but I actually think it was tragic, and other people, including the victim, the guy that died, were part of why it went bad. I would say I was sad to see that he got convicted at all. And for my background, you would think, well, he's standing up for the murder suspect, but it was literally a miscarriage of justice. And the fact that they charged him with murder 1 was clearly way overboard. So yeah, I've been involved in a lot of stuff like that as well, not just like gunny shooty training.
Gunny shooty training. Okay, great. Anything else you guys want to talk about, cover? Check out gunprom.com. Gunprom's coming up on May 9th. Buy your tickets today. Sponsor your table today. Go to gunprom.com. There's still space available. We expect it to sell out. So I guess that's it. Thanks for watching Gun Owners Radio. Like, subscribe, tell all your friends. Don't keep us a secret. And thanks for Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming by, San Diego. There you go.